Thanks everybody for joining today. Like Keith said, we have about an hour or so to cover the top 10 finance projects that we think are quick hits, a lot of value add for your organization. Before we get into that, just a quick about us. If this is your first time viewing one of our webinars or you've not heard of us before, we are an Infor Alliance partner, Cloud Suite specialized, founded right here in Baltimore, Maryland in 1999 with offices in Tampa and Kansas City. We have consultants all across the country specializing in basically all things Infor. And this was our most recent team picture. This isn't everyone, but a subset of the RPI team back last month at Inform.
Yep, it was a good time.
Okay, so we're going to go through the top 10 projects, and these aren't prioritized in any order. It's not a, here's the best, here's the least effective project. It's just our way of organizing these across the solar system. So
yeah, I can tell based on the fact that it's top 10 and you have the solar system that maybe math isn't your strongest.
Well, we're going to get there.
You're a finance major, right?
We're going to get there.
Okay.
Right. So we only have 8 planets. We're going to do a couple things in a minute. But just starting out here with the first 8, we're going to look at lease management, asset management, and activities management. 3 systems that if you're on V10 Cloud, you probably have access to already. Maybe you didn't have it implemented in version 9, but now you moved to 10 and you have it, and you're wondering what value it can bring your organization. We'll go through that and hopefully you get something out of there. Then we'll take a look at APIA or Infor Process Automation as just a way of revamping your AP department. How can you streamline your AP, your invoice processes? Getting over to Jupyter, we're going to get into switching up how you're paying vendors. Instead of checks, let's go ACH. And next up, journal entry, using IPA to, a lot of times IPA is used to route invoices, but let's leverage IPA and route our journals. Maybe there's certain criteria that you need to meet within your organization to route journals for approval. So we'll look at how you can do that. Back office interface automation, so taking some of your interface files, whether they're to the bank or to some other external system, getting that out of the hands of an end user and into the hands of IPA or some interface engine to take over that process.
I can tell that stuff's got to you because there's a lot of IPA in finance
here.
It's good.
The Smart Office rollout, so we'll look at a different way of viewing loss in data and what Smart Office can help you with and add value to as an end user. And last but not
what's
least,
going on here?
We got Pluto coming in. We have reinstated Pluto as the 9th planet.
Okay, there you go.
In order for Keith to talk about an Infor
Well, thank you.
assessment.
I appreciate it.
And we're actually still missing one. So the sun.
Okay, there you go. It's now a planet too.
Is now a planet.
Got it.
And that we'll talk about Microsoft add-ins, the Query Wizard, the Upload Wizard, and how you can use those 2 tools to better get data you need and also increase your efficiencies for uploading data and mass changes. So that's where we're going. What we also want to do is kind of outline
effort level
for these projects, right? So we're going to talk about who is involved, both consultant and client within these types of projects, but also the level of effort that you might expect for each project. So we have a 1, 2, and a 3 for a low, medium, high. Every subsequent slide or every project is going to have this designation so you can kind of follow along.
Yep.
All right, so starting off with lease management. What is the lease management value proposition is a good question, and the answer is it's a couple things, right? So it's the ability to take what you might have now in a spreadsheet, managing hundreds of lease payments, and putting that into a system with controls and automation. So there's plenty of times I talk to clients and they're managing all this in Excel. They're missing lease payments to vendors because they just, something happened and they're not getting that information to AP. Why not take that and put it into Lawson? Let Lawson manage the payment plan for all your leases. It's very good at doing that. You don't have to worry about missing payments to vendors because there's an there's an integration between the lease management system and AP. So the idea here is you're basically building out each lease. If this is a 3, a 5, a 10-year lease, you're building out that whole payment plan, setting due dates for all of your leases, or for those invoices for the leases, running an invoice generation program, and then sending that invoice into AP. So there's an approval step along the way too, which we'll get into, but really the value here is putting control around your lease process, getting that information into a system where you can report off of it. Right, there's reporting out of the lease management system to show lease obligations. I just got off a project where someone was taking a few hours every month just to put this report together, and this is a report that just comes standard with
Just
the
a button now.
Just a button. This is a 3, so up here we've given this a value of a 3, which, it's not a big project, but relative to our 1, 2, 3 scale, it's on the higher end.
So we've had a couple projects recently that went live in what seems to me like 6 weeks or so. And one of the questions I have about it is, when you go live on lease management, you can technically, you're live as soon as you put some leases. You get 5 leases up, and it can sort of be a soft rollout where you continue to add to it.
It can be, yeah. I think, so my last project was every lease they had was beginning of the month pay.
Okay.
So, we timed it so that August 1st was, or before August 1st was really the go live, so you can pay August 1.
How many leases are we talking about?
They had 76.
76, okay, so pretty manageable.
Not a ton, and that project was started and completed in 2.5 months tops.
Yeah.
So
Slow hanging fruit is pretty easy. And so future obligations, we happen to have that lease management webinar yesterday. If you didn't catch it, it'll be on YouTube soon. But having those payments generated on a monthly basis means that if for any reason there's updates to the lease, they can happen dynamically along the way, and it's sort of seamless. It isn't something where you have to go fix a recurring or any of that stuff. So
yeah, you're not locked in. So I said you build out your lease payments up front, but if stuff changes, you go in and you make those changes. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Okay, cool.
Who's involved in this from a client perspective? Well, it's probably a finance super user, staff accountants, AP clerks, and AP managers too, because there is that integration with AP. You want to make sure AP is trained on this new process, they're okay with it, and it's something that fits within their department. A quick overview. Again, we're not supposed to get into crazy level of detail here, but
there is a webinar.
We do have a webinar. Create the lease. Create the invoice really by starting to create the lease, add your payment schedule, create the invoices. There's an optional review section here, and then there is an approval section here too. So you could have different departments doing this approval, right? Maybe AP is generating the invoices, but your property management team is approving them. Mm-hmm. So there is that segregation of duties before the invoice gets over to AP for payment. All right, number 2 is asset management. Why would you want to implement asset management?
Yeah, this is Venus we're in now, right?
The second planet. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Definitely astrology is not his thing. Okay. Astronomy.
Earth.
Yeah. There you go. Okay.
All right, so this is a number 3. Again, similar to a lease management implementation on our scale, probably on the higher end. But why would you want to implement asset management? Again, kind of going back to the spreadsheet, so many times people have asset information tied or living in a spreadsheet. They're running depreciation off of the spreadsheet. Get all that into Lawson. Let Lawson run these monthly depreciation calculations. Let Lawson send journal entries to your general ledger for asset additions and adjustments and things like that, and disposals. It's there. Why not leverage it? And the really nice thing about AM is that it ties in if you have Lawson supply chain. Mm-hmm. So starting at the requisition, purchase order, you can tag these capital purchases with asset templates that eventually stay with that record all the way through invoice matching and creates an asset record after that match. So it really, instead of having to go through one by one in the AM system and add an asset, add your book, add your items, a lot of that can be pushed upstream, and you work with your buyers to tag capital purchases with those templates.
And it goes back to that old thing of a single system of record. So when I want to dispose of an asset or a part of an asset, and so I've identified on the spreadsheet, and I got to go track down a value, you can just do that on the asset itself. You can partially dispose of it or dispose of it right and loss, and so everything will be in sync. I also want to point out that we have a webinar for this on YouTube that Chris Gordon actually did, I think late last year.
Yeah, I think it was last fall. But yeah, so AM's another one of those systems you probably have if you just went to V10 Cloud. If you're looking for more information, let us know. But it can cut down on a lot of hours in terms of a staff accountant manually creating assets at the end of the month or however you're doing it currently. Who's involved? Kind of obvious here though. A finance super user, a staff accountant, AP clerk, and AP manager again too. Because if you are tagging invoices with asset templates, you want to make sure that they know how to do that. And even potentially buyers if you're going all the way upstream to PO with this asset template tracking. All right, the next one here we have activities management. This is kind of the last of the three from that
the extra modules.
What this system, so this activities can do a lot for you. From its basic structure, it's a system that you can set up to track costs in greater detail or track anything in greater detail than your general ledger. So your GL is set up for general tracking, but you can really burst that out or break that out within the AC system and capture costs at a much more detailed level, define how you want to track things, whether they're projects or conferences or whatever it is, or grants really. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of clients using AC for capital tracking, where they build out the AC system to manage their entire capital capital year spend. Mm-hmm. Whether those are CIP projects, whether that's one-time capital purchases, you can keep track of all that in the AC system and really keep track of that at a much more detailed level. And
you can load budgets against it. You can measure, budgets, create commitments from PO. Again, it's the advantage of an integrated system where a purchase order, where you've basically agreed to buy something that maybe hasn't come in, creates a commitment so it has a budget hold. Really nifty stuff.
Yeah, if you got supply chain, utilize the commitment functionality where the requisitioner or the PO is going to generate that commitment. So you're looking at your project and you have a whole bunch of invoices come in, those are your actuals, but you also got a couple $1 million worth of commitments in the form of a PO. So it gives you that visibility from start to finish on your project.
And obviously has the reporting and inquiry for you to see all those things and then drill into what the transactions are that make it up.
The reporting out of the systems is really good. There's plenty of reports to show you actual versus budget, commitment detail, commitment analysis reports, things like that. But really the AC system, you can use it to track pretty much anything. You can bring in time from payroll. We had a project where the client was implementing Epic and wanted to track everything related to Epic, whether that was costs from the vendor as well as internal time tracking costs. So there's the ability to interface payroll data from your loss and payroll system to the project.
I would be remiss if I don't point out we have a webinar for this on YouTube that I think we recorded late last year. And if any of you happen to be attending the Southeast Mega next month, Gordon will be back there to do this with Miss Cindy Brackens.
Yep, can't wait. The really nice thing, so let's say you are building out AC to manage all your capital, there's integration between AC and asset management.
Right.
So an AC 160 program is going to allow you to capitalize one of your closed CIP projects or just one-time capital purchases and create an asset in your AM system. So you can kind of see this whole integration between AC, AP, RQ, PO, AM.
Yeah.
There's a strong tie between a lot of those systems. In terms of who from the client would be involved in this type of project, well, finance super user, staff accountant again, AP clerk, AP manager, even a buyer, materials director if you're getting all the way up to commitment tracking within POs.
You can force GL accounts to require activities, and so that's a way if you do this work in progress account to make sure that it's tagged to a project.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of controls. We can talk for if you have questions about how can you control invoices posting to my project that I don't want to, there's plenty of controls you can put in place so that doesn't happen.
All right, great. So what are we looking at here?
What are we looking at here? So this is if you were to implement the activities module and you wanted to track capital costs, these are your CIPs. How that accounting flow looks from the time of invoice entry all the way to asset creation in asset management.
So one thing I want to point out is that what he has here on the this is the y-axis are posting programs from different systems. What he has here going on the top, think of these as GL accounts. I mean, they are GL accounts, and then this would be for a specific project.
Right.
So all these in AP, when these invoices got processed, obviously they would be coded to the work in progress GL account, and they would be tied to this project.
Correct.
The Chris Gordon project. All right.
So one invoice comes in for $10,000. It's coded to that CIP account, and the AP 175 is going to post the debit to the CIP and a credit to your AP trade. We went back. When the invoice is paid, we clear the liability and credit cash. And really at the time of invoice release, you're going to see that invoice show up in your AC system. But now we've posted that record in AC. It's available to capitalize. The AC 160 now is the job that's going to take your closed capitalized project and move it over into asset management. And what that would do is clear out the original invoice coded to the CIP account, credit that account, and debit your asset clearing account. So kind of the place right before the asset's generated. We run an AM 170 after the asset's been put into the AM system. It's going to release the asset and generate those accounting entries to debit the true asset account and then clear out your clearing account. Okay, so you're ultimately left with just a debit to asset and a credit to your cash account.
Very cool.
And a space shuttle.
That costs extra.
All right, so next up is looking at your
Mars,
AP process.
For the record, anyway.
Looking at your AP process and identifying how you can streamline invoice routing and/or invoice entry and routing. Right, so we've given this a 3. If you're going for a full APIA or accounts payable invoice automation implementation, that's probably a 3 on this scale. That is one of Infor.'s newer AP applications used for invoice routing, invoice coding, and eventual interface into Lawson S3. The value that you're going to get out of that type of software, and this type of software you need to partner with an MHC or some document imaging solution, but you can get that OCR character recognition on invoice entry. You can get the routing within APIA, so it uses IPA as the mechanism or the platform for invoice approval routing. And you're focusing now on just managing exceptions, right? So a lot of this you can automate, and your AP clerks can now work exceptions, and now their time can be moved over to more value add.
So one of the interesting things is, I mean, obviously there's a lot of value towards automating your AP approval process, which is really what we're talking about. When this invoice comes in, how does someone AP know that this authorized to get paid and where to code it to? If it's a purchase order, then that's obviously easy, but non-PO, there's always a process, whether it's manual or not. And historically, ourselves and many other people have used third-party systems to do that. We've leveraged imaging systems. And what's interesting is those imaging systems, they're not really data systems, so you end up distorting forms to carry data points in order for it not to have to be re-entered. So essentially what APIA is in Lawson version 10, it's a pre-entry repository for all this data. And it makes sense to keep it in the same native system that's going to process the invoice. So I think there's some big advantages to doing APIA. Again, you do not need to do OCR to have APIA. It's just it is another helpful piece that we'd recommend. Yeah.
And then the other option there too, if you don't want to purchase APIA, if you have IPA, which is in for process automation, we can set up invoice routing, process flows to take invoices, and based off of a number of different variables, route those to whoever needs to approve. And you can get pretty fancy with IPA with email notifications, approval buttons built into email notifications.
What was I hearing? The one was to identify whether it had an asset clearing account tagged to it to force it to have a template, or to default a generic template in so it doesn't get processed with that one.
We've created a couple good ones that's really control around the asset management process, where upon release of an invoice, the flow is looking to see if a template's coded, if it has a CIP account or an asset account, really. But you can get, depending on your requirements and what you want to accomplish, IPA is always a good first look.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard that before. It's like, okay, I built these asset templates. How do I know when an asset comes through if they don't tag it? So anyway.
Because there isn't that control. So there is the activity control for an account, but there's not the asset template control.
At least that we've discovered.
At least not yet, yeah. Maybe there is.
All right, what's up next? I'm sorry, we're still here.
Yeah, so just the last thing, who's involved in this? I think everyone in AP, right? So your super user, manager, AP clerk.
And IT, you're almost certainly not going to pull this off without IT. Yeah.
Probably want to get them on board.
Yeah.
All right, so next up we have really paying vendors differently. So creating a check, creating hundreds of checks every week and stuffing them into an envelope, adding whatever remittance information you need, and getting those out to the vendor is a very time-consuming process. Move towards ACH as a method of payment. Lawson has that built in. There's AP 161 programs that will create ACH files for you to send to the bank. So the move away from checks. Obviously, it won't be 100% transition, but I think if you can get up towards closer than above 50% is a good target. But it really frees up time for your AP team.
And so when you do this, I mean, the configuration in Lawson is like, it's literally like...
It's a couple forms.
It's a couple forms. And the AP 161 is very similar. Some people even use it for the regular check runs. The output file, that needs to be translated for the bank, right? It's an ACH file, but it's not like you could just send it over and the bank's going to be like, great, So the actual work is sort of an interface project, but it's not a big interface project.
No, you're right. I think even internal IT could probably work on that translation. It's nothing crazy, but really the configuration in Lawson is setting up a couple forms to create new transaction codes and allow those transaction codes to pay via ACH. Coordinate with your banking partner to say, hey, we want this account to be able to pay via ACH. They'll have to set up some things on their side. And that's all communication and coordination that we can facilitate if this is new.
And the way you adopt it then is the vendor can default the payment code. So it's not something that anyone in AP would have to know. It's just have it in the background. And you also default the vendor account information in there. So it all happens behind the scenes.
Yep. The change to your overall process is not that great. Not that large. It is good. It's just volume-wise, it's not a big change.
Cool.
So within this, we label this as a 2. So this is not a huge project. There's definitely, this might be a 2 to 3 month project between coordination and testing with the bank and things like that.
But not a lot of hours effort.
Not a lot of hours. And I think you get a good value for the time you're putting into making this change.
I'd say the IT department, a lot of this from an interface perspective is going to fall on the IT department. What falls from AP is then the process of going out and saying, hey, we want to pay you via ACH.
Exactly, Identify the vendors, the first thing. That will accept ACH, notify them that now we're moving towards that method of payment. Okay, we're up to the journal approval process flow.
Which is Saturn.
We got Saturn's rings out there. Another number 2, because this could, depending on your policies, your organizational policies, this flow could be extremely complex or extremely simple. Not all journal entries need to go through an approval system, right? Maybe there's just specific ones like we have a couple examples listed here. If you're trying to put a journal to a CIP project that's closed, maybe you want to notify someone to review that. If there's a dollar threshold, maybe you want to make sure anything over 10K goes to someone to approve. Manual journal entry, so anything going to any specific type of account range, you can program that. And year-end entries, maybe there are some things that you're doing at the end of the year that need to be reviewed by your manager or someone above you, and we can key off so many different fields within that journal to say, oh, this is a year-end entry, or this is going to a certain account, and route those for approval.
So how does it, just real quick, and I know we've talked about this in the past, so you release the journal entry and then it goes for approval, and it won't post until it's approved?
Yeah, it won't post until it's approved. So upon release, the release is the trigger for that, the journal to enter into the workflow.
Got it.
And then based off of your rules, it'll route.
Got it.
But
so pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, like just an invoice approval flow, you also want to make it as easy as possible for that approver to approve or reject that
get
journal.
something in basket and be able to view it, and
email. Make it as easy for them to adopt the change.
Yeah.
Supporting documentation is not an issue too. If you need to include some type of documentation for your journal entries, if we just find a place to put that in a user field or something like that,
and it grabs
we can grab it from the form.
Cool.
Staff accountant, assistant controller, all types of people that would be involved in a project like this.
I'm actually not confident if this is Neptune or Uranus.
Or it's a big blue.
Yeah,
big blue something.
Yeah, okay.
The idea with this slide, or this project, is to, again, free up time spent manually moving files around between Lawson and external systems.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple examples: a positive pay file, ACH payment file, a reconciliation file coming into AP, and any interfaces they have coming into GL, whether it's for revenue or anything else. These are all processes that can be easily modified and automated via IPA to eliminate the manual touch points within those current processes. So a lot of times you'll see clients going out, or people going out to download reconciliation files from the bank, format them into some sort of CB80 upload, and upload it to CB80, which is a fine process. It works, but it takes time to do that. So we're actually right in the middle of a project now where we're building an interface to go out to look at the bank, grab those recon files, bring them into Lawson, translate them into the CB185 tape format, and then automatically run your CB185 every day. So you have an up-to-date look at where you stand in terms of reconciled and open checks. Same thing with the ACH payment file. If you do make that transition to ACH as a method of payment, don't have someone just go out and manually grab that Lawson output and send it to the bank. We can build an interface that will look for that file when it's outputted and FTP it to the bank. So that whole process is just a seamless process with little touch points manually. The big thing here is just to identify the interface requirements with your banking partner or whoever you're trying to interface this file with. And again, those are conversations we can talk to. We've done in the past and we have experience. We can bring sample files to the plate, so it's something we can kind of get started pretty quick. And if I've not plugged IPA enough, IPA is a great platform to facilitate all these types of interfaces. The IT department's probably the biggest player in this project. They got to make sure that everything's okay for these interfaces. They'd be involved in a lot of the testing. Also the functional super users, so if that's AP, if those are accountants, they would also be involved in the testing and the documentation probably of some of those internal processes.
Yeah, you might want to bring some donuts to the IT department before you come and pitch this.
Okay, next up is a smart office rollout, which is our first number one. So this is a number one, meaning
it's super easy.
Very easy to do, and I think you get a lot of bang for your buck. And there's a lot of ways you can go with this. Typically, clients would approach us and say, hey, we've heard about Smart Office. Can you get us trained? And the way I like to approach that is, yeah, we'll train you, but let's also work with you to figure out why you wanted to roll out Smart Office.
Yeah.
You must have some sort of idea how you want this to look. We can work with you based off of our experiences to help you build out and kind of craft that Smart Office canvas for your users. You don't have to, it's not a one canvas for everyone. It's, HR can have their own, finance can have their own, supply chain can have their own. So there's a million ways to skin the cat when it comes to Smart Office. And really our job is not to tell you what not to do, it's just showing you what you can do and helping you achieve those goals.
So usually when we engage in this, sometimes the client installs it themselves, but the install is real easy. And it's usually about the rollout. And the rollout, you might spend basically 2 to 3 days on site working with users, showing them not just how to navigate it, but helping them build out widgets.
Yeah, widgets or full canvases.
And basically that they can use going forward. It's like, it's not just training, it's like, let's set up your personalized Smart Office.
Yeah, you're teaching them how to fish.
Yeah, absolutely. We do get the question a lot. We did a FSM 11 webinar yesterday. Is Smart Office going away? Well, Smart Office is not part of the Landmark platform. It's part of LSF. So it'll be around as long as you have LSF. And unless you're going to move to FSM 11 next year, it's just really so easy to deploy. It's like, why shortchange yourself with your current system?
Yep. We are going to play a 3 or 4 minute video that just gives you an idea of what Smart Office looks like. Maybe you've seen it before, maybe you haven't, but this video will kind of give you a glimpse at how you could set up your canvas.
There's a webinar for this, by the way, if you go look up in our webinars.
Yeah, we have a full hour-long thing on this.
Yeah.
So we'll break it down to 5 minutes.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, this is a start pad which you can basically customize to represent anything you need, right? So we have a bunch of forms in here for this AP clerk, so this person's always going out to these forms within their processing group. We have the pay cycle defined down there too. And it's a launch pad to get out to those forms. Really good for first-time users of Lawson, so they don't have to worry about form numbers. You can create these start pads, department specific, and say, on that person's first day, here's your start pad, here's kind of your Lawson world. This is just showing here, you can create custom, a link out to an already defined job or report. Right, so if you already have a job you like to submit or a report you like to submit, you can create a link directly there. These are great. So these are our Lawson info browsers, and they allow you to create custom mini queries right on your canvas, showing you real-time data. This one is an open buyer's message info browser, and it's showing you real-time what's out there that's not been acknowledged. All of these fields that we see up here are user defined, so you can bring in or exclude fields that you don't want to see. You can sort on this data, you can type in information here to search. So there's a lot of...
I really like the filtering capabilities, the ability to not have to query or run a report, you just start typing and
it shows up. Yep, it's very user friendly. These aren't meant to replace your reporting system. Right. This is supplemental reporting. Maybe you need to see quick exception lists every morning at a certain time. You can run these. Down here we just have a vendor listing, which you can actually configure to say go out, double click on that and show me that AP10 record. So it's another quick way of navigating within Smart Office. We've done some scripting here within the AP10 record to kind of bring in that vendor's location on a map within a browser tab. This is all based off the address information on the main tab. We can configure that location on a map, which is kind of cool. And that's all through the scripting mechanism within Smart Office. Attachments, they live in version 10 too. They're also in Smart Office, so there's ways to, in this case we have a W9 that we've attached to the vendor record, and that'll live with that AP10 record for as long until you delete it. nothing is getting, this is referencing a directory. So you're not adding a document to the Lawson server, it's just going out to reference where a document's living. But what about personalizations, right? So that's the whole thing about Smart Office. You can personalize the way that you work. This is an example of a customized AP20 list view where we're bringing in other fields that we want to see in addition to what Lawson's providing. So I brought in an out of balance flag so I can see all my out of balance AP20 invoices, easily identified by that asterisk. And you can double click on these just like you saw on AP10 and get out to that AP20 invoice record. List view, you've seen it probably a couple times. I think we had a demo of this in FSM.
Yeah,
pretty
same
much all
thing.
the forums.
So FSM, which version 11, basically works exactly like Smart Office does. Mm-hmm. So you can also consider Smart Office a precursor to getting used to that navigation.
Yeah, they did take that list view functionality from Smart Office, and that's in
and
FSM.
The widgets and the ability to personalize.
Yep. So yeah, in terms of personalization, what can you do to this form to make it your own and really conform to your own business rules? Well, there's this whole section down here that you can use to customize the form. We can add default values to fields. You only got one company, we can always default that company number in there. We can remove fields that you don't worry about. You never have to add a currency, it's always US dollar. So these are the different things that you can do.
Can I control the order that I tab through the fields?
You can control the way that tab goes throughout your form.
It's what I've always wanted.
There's a lot of little things in there, but when they stack on top of each other, like for an AP clerk, going through AP20 with some of those default values and editing up your tab order, it speeds up invoice entry by a little bit. Who's involved? Really, this is for anyone. This is not just finance, this is HR, supply chain. I think the people that stand to gain the most benefit are the power users. Mm-hmm. So we're talking someone who's in Lawson 4 to 6 hours a day. That is primarily their job. That they'll be able to leverage those personalizations we saw, customize that canvas, and really make a whole working experience. Okay.
So this is Pluto. So I got one planet, and it's the one that's not even a planet anymore. So, yeah. So I mean, I think this is an important thing to consider for all those of you that are out there in the Lawson world in the finance departments. His BI is changing. I'm sure you guys have all heard of N4BI and certainly a general future direction away from distributed reports and towards dashboards and exception-based management. So when you look at sort of the transaction list that Chris was showing, like in Smart Office, the future of how you manage work is you go somewhere and you just see, here's my list of exceptions, here's my unreleased journal entries, here's my journal entries pending posting, and from there you filter and just click straight into it. Mm-hmm. It's not like you go ask for a report and then print it and then determine something and go get that transaction. Right. Old school. And I think mentally, we have to start getting around the fact that the reason that we're getting a PDF in our inbox in the first place is because that data wasn't easy for us to get to. Mm-hmm. or to make that request. And one of the things that happens for those of you that had LBI is that you get some licenses for, I believe it's called N4BI for Lawson. You get some N4BI licenses to start playing with. And so one of the things we've started doing is we have this little 3-day workshop to show you the capabilities, how it might work, and start seeing if it's going to be a fit for your organization. The other thing that I might start to think about is obviously RW100 is going away, and I, for one, am glad. I am never been a fan. It feels old, antiquated, and cumbersome. I mean, we do the work because it's we're consultants, but it's something you got to start strategically looking at. How am I going to move away from this? Am I going to wait till I go to FSM? Is it something that I want to tackle now? So again, just a quick hit. Look at where you are, what your tools are. Some of you might have the Dashboard Gear products or other third-party products. We can work with those as well, and sort of give you a roadmap for how to improve upon what you have.
Cool. Last but not least is the Sun with our, again, a number one. So this is probably one of my favorites on the list, just because it's such an easy. It's not even a project. It's just something to do. And you get so much back from it. So we're talking about Microsoft add-ins, the upload wizard, and the query wizard. So that's the two things that come within this tool, doing different things. So let's talk about the query wizard first. You're basically allowing your end users now to go access Lawson tables and/or forms and extract data. The query wizard is going off Lawson security. So if a user can't get to an HR form in Lawson S3, they're not going to magically be able to get to it through the query wizard. What this empowers them, right? Because it allows them to go out, do table dumps, look at. I use this all the time for troubleshooting. So it's a really good tool to look at specific data sets and troubleshoot data. There is the ability to link in other Lawson tables, but there are limitations to that. The tool is not meant, just like we saw with those info browsers, it's not meant to replace a Crystal Reports or a BI, but this is a supplemental tool that you can provide your end users and really empower them to go get the data that they need. Maybe they're just requesting a vendor listing or something, or some report from IT that they can now create themselves, save that report and run it whenever they want, and that's.
So I will point out that the add-ins mimic whatever security they have in Lawson, so they'll be able to query on and report on whatever they have access to regularly.
Right.
So you would need access to the AP Bedmass, require vendor, so you don't have to worry about that. It's fully integrated.
Yep.
And it's basically the best thing that happened to Lawson in the last 20 years was the add-ins. Yeah.
Yep, huge tool. Query Wizard's nice. The Upload Wizard is really nice too. That allows you to basically take data from Excel, and I guess we'll take a step back. All this lives within Microsoft Excel. It's an add-in. The Query or the Upload Wizard allows you to take mass data within your spreadsheet, load it to Lawson, change data in Lawson, or delete data. Same thing holds true if you can't get to a form, you can't add an invoice in S3, you aren't going to magically be able to do that now. But for for AP clerks, for accountants, you can upload invoices, you can upload journal entries, do mass changes using the Upload Wizard. So there's real power by giving these out to people. And it comes down to this project is really just training, understanding Lawson tables, understanding a couple key things to create those uploads, and that's about it. This is a 1 to 2 day training session, and at the end of that, your users should be able to create their own reports and create their own uploads. Who's involved in a typical project or a typical training session like this? Staff accountants, AP clerks, and this isn't finance specific, right? This is supply chain, this is HR. So if you've heard add-ins thrown around and you weren't really sure what it does, hopefully this helped. And if you need
to get on those. Number one, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the last one we have here, rounding out our top 10.
So quick IPA Symposium slide for those of you that might be attending the Southeast Mega Meeting in Charlotte on September 18th. We are tacking on a day that's going to be focused on IPA. It's going to cover a lot of the things that Chris spoke about earlier. Certainly everyone's welcome. Perhaps there are some IPA developers or newer to IPA that want to get into development that are interested in attending. You can find out more information on our website. I will point out as well that sometimes it's hard to get momentum behind. All these projects are pretty small.
Yeah.
But some of our customers leverage our managed services. So through our managed services program, you can get not only tech support, but you can do what we call small projects.
Yep.
And so you can tackle these on, maybe have a priority list, and over time just continuously improve your system and get more functionality. Are there any questions?
Let me check.
So let me do a proactive thank you to whoever does ask us a question.
Well, there is.
So what character am I in this? Is one of these guys?
You're Bruce Willis.
I'm Bruce Willis. I love Chris.
I had to do that.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, we do have a question. When you mention version 10 cloud, Do you mean on Cloud Suite or version 10 of Lawson?
So I mean version 10 of Cloud Suite, right?
Yeah. I think she's probably referring, or whoever asked is probably referring to the asset management, lease management.
The other
activities.
modules. So Infor, obviously there's a large install base, and historically Lawson sold on a modular level. Now Lawson is selling in a grouped, right? Instead of having all those entities. So there are different programs out there, but a lot of folks, if you move to Cloud Suite, then you should have the full financials modules, including lease management.
Okay, and we have schedules in our Lawson back office. Should we, or is there an opportunity to move them out to IPA?
Schedules as in interfaces, I imagine.
I'm assuming scheduled events or scheduled.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to move to those.
Definitely. Yeah, if we can take a look and see what you have running now, and maybe IPA is a more efficient way to make that work.
Interfaces and nightly jobs is actually what they're.
Yeah, definitely. That's a.
Yeah,
Like we
perfect.
said, IPA is a great tool or great platform to use in order to get all those interfaces working.